Hey, what's up, everybody? Locked On Badgers. John Garcia, Sports Illustrated recruiting director, joins the show. We're going to chop it up with the latest commits and talk about something that the Badgers are doing that's a little unusual. All that and more in today's Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. I am Ryan Herrings, your host on this show. Joined today by John Garcia, Sports Illustrated recruiting director. It's been a week since we talked to him, but man, it feels like longer than that. Can't wait to have him back on the show. John, we got news, man. Last time we talked, the recruiting, Wisconsin had one commit. We now added another transfer and a high school kid. I kind of want to start with James Durand, 2023, the second commit in the class, offensive lineman, 6'4", 280 pounds out of Arizona. Can you tell us a little bit more about Durand?
This was such an interesting get for Wisconsin. Typically, you think of that program recruiting O-linemen consistently, and then you also think of them recruiting them locally or regionally at a minimum. So to go down to Arizona, where the competition is great, by the way, I don't want to make it seem like it's anything, but I thought was interesting, even to target a prospect like James. But, it turns out that he's always been interested in Wisconsin on his end, took some unofficial visits on his end, got some family in the state. So really, he kind of kicked this thing off as much as Wisconsin identified him as a potential offensive line candidate. Took a couple trips, and then they offered. And really from that point, it was Wisconsin's race to lose. All the other offers were Pac-12, Big 12, kind of locally and regional type offers. So once he got that Wisconsin offer that he clearly coveted, he was kind of done with the process at that point. So really nice identification here by the Wisconsin offensive coaching staff. This is a kid that fits, 6'4", 290 or so, probably more destined to play on the interior. But you watch him move and run around a little bit, and there's a lot to like about the tape. I mean, he's a striker, really comfortable at the point of attack. I like his extension as well, which is really, formidable when you're talking about a balanced offensive line prospect. But like most we talk about at the high school level, really comfortable in the run game, really a seek and destroy kind of run blocker. He's got that nasty mentality and an edge to his game, which is what you want, because you can always dial that back as you need to develop on the pass protection front, but you can never really ramp it up. So you want an offensive lineman who's got that nasty, who's got that alley street gang level of intensity when he gets into the phone booth. And I think James brings some of that to the table. I do think he's a little bit raw technically, which is a little outside the box from what we usually talk about with Wisconsin offensive line development, but taking him this early and allowing him to develop from a physical standpoint and then get the technical stuff on top of that could prove to be a really nice get, because I think this is one where, because of where he plays and the high profile of coaches that are going to go through there this spring and certainly see him during his senior season, I do think his athletic profile and his recruiting profile collectively will be rising over the next 6 to 12 months. So I think the timing here really strong for Wisconsin to have that conviction to offer him a scholarship and, more importantly, Ryan, give him the green light to actually jump on and make a verbal commitment.
You mentioned this earlier. The competition level there in Arizona, specifically for Durand playing at Chandler, he's going up against some real powerhouse pros. And Arizona is an underrated football state. He's going to come in having played some very good school programs.
Look, you think of the best high school football on the West Coast. Obviously, you go to Los Angeles first, but after that point, you could start saying Seattle, Phoenix. I mean, those areas are really right there. Las Vegas, certainly. And you think of the schools in Arizona, Chandler, Saguaro, Pinnacle, where Spencer Rattler played. I mean, those are some big-time schools in general. Desert Pines is another in that area. So I think that is an up-and-coming area in terms of population growth, which is what you want to see, because that's where the kids that are outside of that California footprint can start to establish themselves. And I think with the pandemic and inflation, all these other things, a lot of people are moving out of the state of California, and the Phoenix area, Arizona in general, has become a very popular one. So the football competition was already strong there, but is only getting stronger, which is my larger point. So getting, again, a prospect from this area seems truly outside the box and outside of the norm. But in retrospect, 6 months from now, I think we're going to say, man, this was a nice early identification and get for Wisconsin, because his profile is going to rise, because a lot of coaches are going to go through those areas looking for talent. So to know he's an offensive lineman already off the board of Wisconsin, probably going to turn some of them off and say, well, dang, he's an O-lineman going to Wisconsin, so we probably don't have a great shot.
Interesting. So one of the things I liked on this film, and I think you hit on it, I like the fact that because so many high schools, if their best offensive lineman, he's just going to play left tackle because he's their best guy. I like the fact that he's playing guard in their offense, like, because that's what he's going to be in college, and you see him pull from the guard spot. You see him leading the way on sweeps. Talk to me a little bit about. We don't have to translate it from what he looks like as a high school tackle to how he maybe on the inside.
And that's, to me, Ryan, another indication of the talent level around him, to where he can be an interior guy at the high school level, despite probably being the best O-lineman on his high school roster. But yeah, when you're already playing that guard position, there's so many little intricacies that are hard to navigate and adjust towards when you change positions on the offensive line. Everything from even your stance. When you talk to an offensive lineman, how wide you are, which foot is up front, how balanced you are in the run game versus the passing game, trying to maintain that level of secrecy to not give anything away pre-snap. All those things change dramatically when you move over one spot in either direction. So for him to already be playing on the interior and comfortable playing from the interior, I think does say a lot about his high school program as well as the kid himself, because it would be easy for him to go somewhere else and probably play left tackle, which is, I'm sure, where James 2-3 years ago thought he was going to play forever, which is, I'm sure, where he was playing at the little league or pee wee level whenever he started playing football. So I think it's an indication of the kid and the program all in the same, and probably another one of those benefit of the doubt creating situations that helped Wisconsin give him that green light.
Hey, I want to follow up this. I'm veering, of course, a little bit from Durand, but Arizona, it's with the two in-state schools, you have Wildcats and the Sun Devils. Is that kind of a recruiting free-for-all? I mean, I'm sure USC is there. I'm sure but it seems like that's a place other schools more.
100%. Arizona, had a great recruiting class, but not a great on-field performance in 2021. And Arizona State, I mean, it's really easy to recruit against them right now based on all the smoke around their program in general. Not a lot of people expect that coaching staff to stay in place. Frankly, some people are surprised that they're in place right now. So I think right now it is wide open. And we mentioned the population growth there, that the football talent that is migrating to that area could keep it wide open, not only for the Pac-12, but for other schools outside of the region to dip their toes in and just see, hey, where do we stand if we send some coaches out that way? And I think that's why the top prospects from Arizona are all over the place in terms of where they've gone to college over the last few years. I don't think in the last decade there's been a stranglehold on the state's top recruits for either in-state program. Like you mentioned, USC, UCLA, Oregon have always had success out there. We've seen the Texas schools, both Texas and Texas A&M, have a lot of consistency out there. Oklahoma as well. I mean, just off the top of my head, Darnell Washington was one of the best players in the region. He's at Georgia. Spencer Rattler, we talked about, is at Oklahoma. Christian Kirk was at Texas A&M. I mean, you really can kind of go down there and say, man, those top kids in that area don't often stay. I think Notre Dame signed a DB from there who's a nickel prospect, Benjamin Morrison, last year. So there's really kind of an open door there. And anytime that happens in recruiting, everybody who's stable is going to jump in there, and Wisconsin certainly feels like one that could maybe make this more of a consistency.
Today's show is brought to you by Built Bar. Built Bar remains my number one choice for a nutritional partner in my fitness journey, guys. It's awesome. It's healthy. It's nutritious. I throw it in the backpack, and I have the reoccurring buy on Amazon, so I don't have to stress anything, right? The variety pack shows up monthly on my doorstep, like manna from the nutritional gods. And honestly, I should up how much I buy, because I run out before the next package comes. So, guys, if you want something that tastes good, it tastes delicious, and it feels nutritious, like your body enjoys it, your taste buds like it, this is the way to go. I've been blown away by the variety, the taste, and quite frankly, how good I feel after eating them. 17 to 20 grams of protein, half the calories of your typical, candy bar. You feel great eating them, and you don't feel guilty about it. Like, it's 100% pure chocolate, but it's healthy. There's protein. You get your muscles built, right? This is something you got to check out, guys and gals, if you haven't done it. Go to Built.com. Promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off your order at Built.com.
Hey guys, we're coming back with John Garcia. Next, we wanted to talk about, we teased it a little bit. The Badgers doing something maybe a little unusual in the transfer portal. So we're going to bring John back in. I want to start with the latest transfer in the defensive backfield, Utah safety Latu. I think it's Latu. Am I pronouncing that right? Kamo'i Latu?
Yep, Kamo'i Latu or Latu, either way.
I know you have some familiarity with him. What can you tell us about his game?
This is a physical player. I mean, this is a kid who, redshirted in 2020. Look, pandemic season, shortened season. The Pac-12 didn't play a ton of games out in Utah where he was at. But last year, got to see the field. I watched some of the tape today from his kind of breakout performance, 10-tackle game against USC. He was named the Pac-12 Freshman of the Week that week. And, man, he is flying downhill. Mm-hmm. Just no abandon for his own body, just diving at ankles. I mean, just really manufacturing tackles in space against swift USC skill position players, which we know they've always had on that roster. So I thought that was really interesting. His read and react timing looked strong. The physicality's there, 6'1", 195 pounds or so. And the instincts looked good. I thought he was moving well laterally and transitioning out of his back pedal downhill really consistently. I mean, you can't have 10 tackles if you're just, playing off and you're just tackling receivers. It just doesn't add up that way. So I thought that was really encouraging with Latu. He's a confident kid, a kid I remember a little bit in the high school recruiting game, who we thought at the time, man, this is a great fit for Utah. Physical safety, a guy who can maybe be an extension of your linebacking core when you go to some nickel and dime packaging. And I think that applies for Wisconsin, right? Similar aggressive defensive style. So the fit there schematically makes a lot of sense. But, I certainly don't remember Wisconsin recruiting him much out of high school coming out of Hawaii. So I thought that was interesting too, kind of another strong evaluation here from Wisconsin, looking for some help in the secondary. They brought in a lot of corners, but not a physical downhill safety type. So I thought this was a nice balancer for what they've done in the secondary.
And I think they might have had an in here. If you remember Nick Herbig, back when he came out of Hawaii, this was actually his teammate. So I think they had maybe a little bit of an inside source there with Herbig. I want to talk to you about, you mentioned it, the Badgers brought in 4 transfer defensive backs through the portal. Can you think of another program that has bolstered a particular, that would be like, that would almost be like bringing in 5 transfer offensive linemen. Have you seen another program go all in on a position like this through the portal?
Yeah, we've seen some really try to overhaul position groups. Indiana on the defensive line, Wisconsin obviously in the secondary, but usually it goes through the transition coaching staffs because they're overhauling everything, right? So I think LSU's brought in 3 or 4 defensive backs that are going to have to play, but that would make sense, right? They've lost some in the portal, changed over head coaches. That would make sense at LSU or Florida or Oregon or USC, Oklahoma, etc., schools that are under new regimes. But for an established program like Wisconsin that has been just so steady, to have that is certainly unusual. And I think bringing in 4 guys who kind of look like they could start, I think that's where it really starts to get interesting with a position group and a unit that you always expect to be strong with Wisconsin in the secondary. But I think when you look into the transfers, they all have some experience and they all bring something a little bit different to the table positionally, which is, I think, really important in trying to build a unit. So, and most of them are older. I think Latu is the youngest of all of them that they've brought in. And he's going to be a third-year college player. So if that's the youngest you're bringing in, I think you feel really good about the experience pulling in other players from, Toledo, Kentucky, et cetera.
Yeah, I looked. They're coming in with Latu 15 or 16 total years of college football experience. They've added to the secondary, which is incredible to me. Is there anything in particular? I kind of want to wrap up on this. Anything in particular, looking at this group coming in, that stands out to you? Is there one player that you're a little higher on, or do you think as a whole it's just a really strong group?
Well, I think a couple of the transfers are already there, right, in the secondary. Scott, Clark. They got a ton of reps, looks like with the ones. I think there's some nickel ability potentially there, I think, with Scott in particular. But they're very different, I think skill-wise. I think some are true corners. Certainly the Kentucky transfer looks like a long and lean zone corner type, so maybe you use him a little bit more in the boundary. And then the other 2, you might be able to move around, whether it's field corner or potentially in that nickel spot. So you need that versatility. I mean, it is the Big Ten, and you expect to play tough smash mouth football, but obviously you still have third downs and you still have some programs that really want to open things up. Minnesota, Indiana in particular come to mind right off the top, even Penn State at times, certainly Ohio State, my goodness. So you have to combat a lot of guys in space. So bringing in the combination of experience and versatility, I thought was really, really smart from Wisconsin, and getting them, a couple of them there for spring ball, really paramount, because not only will they factor in physically from day one, but now they can kind of catch the other guys up as they arrive, because they do have experience in different styles of defenses, and they've had to pick up this Jim Leonhard defense on the fly, and obviously have done so, from what we can tell, pretty consistently and successfully.
Right. One more question. I know I said I was going to leave it on there, but I'm one more quick question, and you don't have to go too deep on this. How have programs attacked the transfer portal through the recruiting department? Have programs started to have one guy dedicated to just the transfer portal, or a group of guys? Have you seen a consistent approach there?
Absolutely. And I think that's why a guy like Latu entering the portal, and then less than a week later, he's done. Like, he's already made his decision, because you do have an entire wing of your department. It's usually just added responsibility for some of the scouts, director of player personnel and that kind of group. They're in the portal refreshing that thing every day, and the NCAA just changed some of those guidelines in terms of how you access the portal. So you have to stay active now. I think the password expires in 2 or 3 days now. So we can't just, call up our buddies and say, hey, can you give me that password again? No, you'd have to do it every 2 or 3 days. So these departments are prepared for something like that. And that's why basically the moment some of these kids announce their intention to hit the portal, they're on the phone with multiple coaching staffs, setting visits, getting pitches, and trying to line things up, because some of these recruitments move incredibly fast after they enter the portal. And I think that was the case with Latu, and certainly some that are still available now. It will not be much longer until some of these rosters feel a lot different because of the portal itself. But yeah, you have to dedicate people to it, because not only are you navigating other people and prospects that you could potentially bring in, but you're also, in some cases, checking out, hey, our guy's officially in the portal today, or hey, our guy's not in the portal yet, so maybe that paperwork still hasn't gone through. So I mean, it really does work both ways. But roster management is a lot to deal with in college football these days, and the portal is certainly a big part of it.
Right. Everybody, John Garcia, we have him on every week if we can. Thank you again, John, for all the time. I really appreciate it, man.
Always a pleasure, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, coming up, we're going to talk about one of the recruits I have talked about a lot on the basketball side. And I'm telling you, from what we've seen, this might be about a done deal, and it's a potential program changer. Coming up next. But first, today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. Rock Auto is the number one way, the number one source, the number one site to buy car parts from in 2022. Use your mobile device. You head to the website. There's drop-down menus, whatever you want to do. Every single part you need, easy to use from the comfort of your home. Stop going to that local parts store where they may not even have what you need. If they do, they're going to charge you 50%, 100% more, right? Go to Rock Auto, get the lowest price, sometimes 100% off. And they are a family business. They've been doing it for 20 years, serving DIYers. They know what it's about. They built a community. There's a reason they're thriving. It's because people keep coming back to them. You get parts cheaper, you get parts quicker, and you get exactly what you need without the aggravation of trying to explain to somebody behind the counter who doesn't care necessarily about what you need. Like, you don't have to go through the hassle. Why do it to yourselves? You don't need to do it anymore. Go to Rock Auto. It's the best auto parts experience you will ever have. Easy to use website. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, guys. I teased it. We've talked about it. I've been a founding member of the Gus Bus. Gus Yalden had his official visit, right? That's happened. We talked a little bit about Gus, what we think of him as a commit. I had Dylan Graff on. We talked about him. With Dylan Graff, we talked about Gus Yalden. So he has a Twitter post up. He's going to be announcing, a commitment coming up relatively soon. And the finalists are Nebraska, Rutgers, the College of Charleston, and Wisconsin. This feels like a commit, guys. This feels like a straight up commit. And I'm telling you right now, this guy's a program changer. I'm gonna put my flag in the ground. I love his game, and I think he's in that sweet spot. We've talked about it before. If you can get a good player who isn't good enough for the NBA, that's like the college sweet spot, right? That is that area you can live in where for 2, 3, 4 years, this guy is going to continue thriving and getting better and frankly beating up on kids who aren't good enough and are jumping to the NBA while these other programs are in flux. Yalden can be a guy after a redshirt year that is a 3-year starter for Wisconsin. I mean, he has a nickname, Baby Jokic. Jokic just won the NBA MVP. Now, is he Jokic? Obviously not. But you don't get that nickname if you don't have some of the similarities, right? He is a perfect fit for today's modern basketball. A point forward, right, who can shoot, who can facilitate, who can post up. He can also punish people in the post, guys. Like he can, with his footwork, he can punish people in the post. He's going to have some defensive limitations probably, but the way Wisconsin plays defense, and I want to get Dylan Graff back on to ping him on this because he's more of an expert on this than I am. But they play that drop defense with their posts. They're not asking their posts to come out necessarily on the pick and roll switch and take a guard one-on-one. They're giving their posts some help. They've always done it. It's that Bo Ryan system. So I think defensively, Gus Yalden, this is probably the perfect system for him. We know he's going to be able to stretch the floor a little bit. I like his shot, even though he hasn't always shot it really well. And when you look at the pieces coming together in this Wisconsin team, right, you have Blackwell, you have a Segian. I think there's some shooters taking space around here. And if you put kind of a point forward, a point center in the middle of that, which is Yalden, who can post, who can pass, who can shoot, you're really going to put a lot of stress on a team. You remember Ethan Happ, how teams would double him, but he was such a good passer that he could find a lot of open shooters. That's kind of like Yalden, except Yalden's a better shooter. Now, I'm not sitting here saying Yalden's going to be better than Ethan Happ. Ethan Happ was an incredible college basketball player. Yalden's different, right? He's not going to be that skilled in the post with his footwork because nobody was that skilled in the post with his footwork. But he's going to be able to shoot better. He's going to be able to pass similarly. He's probably not going to be. He's certainly not going to be the defensive player Happ was. Happ was awesome at the defensive end. But from an offensive standpoint, there's a chance Yalden has a higher ceiling than Happ because he can shoot. I'll just say that. Will he get there? Who knows, right? It's very possible he doesn't because most people don't get to Ethan Happ's ceiling. But Yalden is a big-time recruit, a big-time player, and it really looks like this could be heading Wisconsin's way. And that would be an enormous get for Greg Gard. I mean, that would be pop off the fireworks type get. I may be overhyping him, but I've loved his film from day one. I loved his film when people thought he was maybe trending in a different direction to Louisville, for example. I have loved this dude's film from the moment I saw it as a Wisconsin fit. He feels like the perfect guy for a modern version of what Wisconsin wants to do with their bigs, right? They want to play the pick and pop. They want to involve their offensive players, their post players in situations where they can exploit mismatches. And Yalden can do that. Yalden can do that and then some. Like Yalden's going to be a more versatile offensive player than a Steven Crowell, a Nate Reavers. You think of some of the bigs we've had recently. He has the ability to really score from 3 levels from the post and be a facilitator. So I'm telling you right now, we're going to talk more about Yalden coming up. I'll talk more about Yalden later in the week. If this is a commit that happens, it's a really big deal for Wisconsin guys. And it's definitely something to keep an eye on. It's definitely something to be excited about. It would definitely be something where you give a lot of credit to Greg Gard for making it happen. Exciting news there, guys. We talk a little bit about the fit, how he would fit into the roster going forward. We mentioned the shooting. Wisconsin is a team that, has been trying to actively upgrade the shooting as well. So you put shooters around him. I think they're still continuing to look at that. And it's going to be a really dangerous potential offensive team with Yalden in the middle of that in the next 2 or 3 years. So that's Gus Yalden, guys. Listen, I appreciate the show. We had a few technical difficulties today. So if you see things shifting around, that's why. I do apologize for that. We had 3 segments with John Garcia lined up, and we were only able to get 2 of them. So I wanted to throw this one in there because I do feel like the Gus Yalden news, the idea that he's down to 4 schools in Wisconsin is clearly the best choice among those. I think that's very newsworthy, noteworthy, definitely something we want to get out there. As always, guys, I every time I look at my YouTube, the Locked On YouTube page, it's not mine, certainly. We see new subscribers, which is amazing to me. If you guys like the content, please like the show. Subscribe to it, leave a comment. It really helps. Any comments you have, if you have any questions, we get to them on the show for sure. So thank you guys so much for everything. Thank you for making Locked On Badgers your first listen every day. And please feel free to reach out to the show if you have any questions or if you just want to chop it up on something. Thanks, guys. We'll talk to you later.